The advice and opinions expressed by the host of Autism Live and her guests are meant solely as suggestion and should not be in any way construed as child-specific advice. The Center for Autism and Related Disorders advises working with a board-certified behavior analyst who has experience with autism before starting any intensive behavioral intervention. Any choices you make in determining your child's treatment are completely at your own discretion.
Good morning and welcome to Autism Live. I'm Shannon Penrod. We're coming to you live from the Warner Center in Woodland Hills, California. This is the home for Autism Live. It is also the home for the Center for Autism and Related Disorders, their world headquarters here in Woodland Hills. I am so excited to be here with you on this Wednesday morning. I have so much to talk to you about. It's crazy how much I have to talk to you about, but we have no time right now. On Wednesdays, we love it. Whenever we can, we have Dr. Doreen Graham-Pichet here live. Unfortunately, I know it's a bummer. I don't have her here live this week, but I'm told I absolutely have her next week. Let's keep fingers crossed. But in any case, we have a recorded version to play for you, and it's a good one, but it's a little bit long, so I need to hurry. But we're going to be here live in the next hour with Nancy Allspaw-Jackson for Let's Talk Autism with Shannon and Nancy. How about this? Our live guests at that time are going to be Amy Schutbauer. She's a school improvement specialist from Salem High School. So excited that we're going to be talking with her. And then we also have Howie Hoffman, who is joining us from Exceptional Minds. What an incredible, incredible organization. If you've ever been to a Marvel movie, or if you have someone in your family or you yourself are on the autism spectrum, you're going to want to hear how these two things go together, because it's pretty amazing. And of course, we have in the news to cover for you and a whole bunch more that we want to talk about. And I am the mother of a 15-year-old now. How did that happen? If somebody could pinch me and tell me how that happened. And I also went to two really amazing autism events over the weekend that I want to give a little love to, and then talk about the cavalcade of wonderfulness that we have coming to you tomorrow. All that is coming up. Samantha's going to show you really quickly the ways that you can connect with us throughout the show. 2 hours, you can be writing in. Because we're showing a recorded version, I'll be monitoring if you guys have questions about anything that Dr. Graham-Pichet is saying, and you can be chatting with me, especially on Facebook during this next little segment. And then, of course, we'll be back in here live. Same thing, you can chat with us then. So I do want to remind you, our homepage, autism-live.com, that's got the live feature, and you can chat with me there as well. It's all free. You don't have to log in. You don't have to use a username, password. It's also anonymous, and that's the really good thing about doing it on that page. If you're writing it on Facebook, then other people get to see what you say, and sometimes that's a remarkable thing. You make friends, and people go, hey, you ask the kind of questions I like, and that's a fabulous thing. But sometimes you like to be a little bit more on the down low, you know? So autism-live.com, use the live feature. All of that's good. I'm excited to be here. Let's take a look at Ask Dr. Doreen. Always a thrill for me to see you here.
So
I love my entire week better when I get to see you on Wednesdays.
That's so kind of you.
It's the truth, though. And for those of you who don't know Dr. Graham-Pichet, she is a fabulous, I believe, the preeminent expert on autism in our time, and there is no other time, as far as I'm concerned, for autism than now. She's been working in this field. She officially, later on this year, can say 40
years.
That's crazy, right? We all want her skin cream, because it just isn't believable. But she has been doing that, and so over that period of time, she has worked with very young children, teenagers, adults, even senior citizens. She has a wealth of knowledge. She started the Center for Autism and Related Disorders, which is now 180 some odd offices and growing around the country with affiliates around the world. She also founded Autism Care and Treatment Today, and I want to say for anybody who doesn't know what that is, go to act-today.org. You still have a little less than a week if you want to apply for a grant in this quarter, but she started that. They've given away over $1.5 million. I think it's close to $2 million worth of grants at this point. So she's an amazing lady, and she gives us this hour every week that she can to answer your questions for free. So we love that, and thank you for doing that.
Thank you very much.
We do tell people at the start of the show that there is no expert of any kind that could give individual specific advice. So when you ask a question, give as much information as possible, but understand that she's going to give you information of a general nature to help you to, you know, kind of decision tree what to do next and what to say to the experts who have eyes on the individual, whether it's child or adult. And we welcome questions from everyone. So I wanna launch in because we have a lot of things to talk about. The first question that I've got is, I have this question: with the 10-year anniversary of me getting diagnosed with Asperger's, there were some of my teachers in the beginning who didn't get to see progress that I have made over the years. My question is it a good idea? And if so, how can I show and tell them? They were the ones who sent prayers because back then it was bad.
I mean, I think I, as a teacher, I would really enjoy knowing how my students have progressed, for sure. You know, so I think it's a great idea. I don't know if I mentioned to you, about a month ago or so, I was heading over to Florida, and it was a overnight flight. Did I mention this to you?
But tell them.
It was just so touching because I sat on the flight, and you know, you're always kind of getting geared up for an overnight flight, so I was just arranging my stuff and kind of getting ready for that, and then a family walked in, and the mom started talking to me, and I recognized her sort of, and I was like, how do I know her? What's the relation? And then 3 young individuals followed her who were her sons, and her children overall were like 16, I want to say 19 and 22. And I recognized them, and then Dad came in, and I realized that this was a family, they told me, of course, and this was a family that I worked with for many years here at CARD, and all 3 children had been diagnosed, all 3.
Wow.
And they were, at that time, this is years ago, so they were regional center funded family, and so we would, for the boys, I remember we would get like over 20, 30 hours a week for a while. Regional center was very good about this. And then, and all 3 have completely recovered, and I don't want to give away too much information, but they're, 2 of the boys are in like Ivy League universities, and they are, and the youngest child is still in high school last year, but very, very just impressive careers ahead of them. And it was such a, you know, when I finished, they recovered with us, but not the little one, but the other 2 had already finished, but they're so young at that point. They were like, I don't know, I want to say 12, 14, you know, and when you see them later and they come back and they're like in their 20s and they're attending Ivy League universities and doing absolutely, and just so social and appropriate with me, and just so friendly and amazing, and just like, oh my gosh, it was so life-changing for me and my husband too, who's, you know, seen a few of these things, but he was like, he couldn't stop talking about it the whole week. He's still talking about it. But and it's just so amazing to experience that. And so I think any teacher who is given the opportunity to know how you're doing years later, it's a gift. If you are willing to share it with teachers, I think that it would be nice for them to know how you're doing.
Absolutely. And I know later on somebody asked that they would love to be on Autism Live. I don't know if it was this particular person who questioned. We've had a lot of requests lately for people who want to be on the show, and I want to tell you that you know, I like to make room for everyone. If anybody wants to be on the show, there's a very specific thing that you need to do, and that's write to me at s.penrod@autism-live.com and give me a short 1 paragraph about who you are and what it is that you particularly want to share on the show. And then that starts the conversation between us. And We'd like for you to have a specific topic to come on and talk about, but this would be a good topic, for instance.
Absolutely.
Somebody who wants to come on and say, I want to thank this teacher, this teacher, this teacher, and we can even see if we can, connect with the teacher. It would be a very fun thing to do.
Absolutely.
So s.penrod@autism-live.com. And that's to anybody that's out there. If somebody was like, why have I never been on Autism Live a couple of weeks ago? And I was like, well, because you got to let me know what you want to be on.
Yeah.
There's a process, and be a part of the process. So we enjoy that. Okay, we're gonna take a break. That's what we're gonna do, and then we're gonna come back because we got some interesting questions here and stuff that you guys are writing in. So please stick with us.
Welcome back, everyone. It's the beginning of a new year, which means the possibilities for new beginnings and starting new traditions. So I figured for the month of January, we should make a calendar for our kids to use. The focus of this project will happen with your children after it's completed. All you need to do to make the calendar is to go to facebook.com/autismlive to download the template I've already made for you guys. And then the other materials you'll be needing are a scissors and some magnets, which is super easy to find at your local craft store. Once you have your printed templates and you have your magnets, all you have to do is just take the paper and then assemble it onto the magnet. It's super easy. And then cut out all the shapes. That part is a little bit more tedious, but once you have that done, you're gonna have a calendar that you can use all year round for years to come. So let's get to it. Why is this calendar so cool? Well, first thing, it's that everything is completely modular, like I said before. So you can have your kids practice naming the days of the week and putting them in order. You can even ask them questions like, what month comes after January, for instance. Other things you can do with your child is having them, label the different seasons and then assigning the seasons to the correct months. So there's different ways you can use this based on your child's skill level. And what's cool about this calendar is as your child grows, so is the use value of this magnet calendar, because you can focus on more abstract things with your kid as they develop and work on simpler things with them when they first start working with it. And this is something you can always do every day of the week because the days change, right? So there's always an opportunity to visit the calendar and to use it in your daily lives. And these are just a few examples of the kind of activities you can do while playing with the magnet calendar. I hope you enjoy this activity, and I look forward to seeing you next month. Until then, craft on.
Can you see me flying by your side?
Hey, I'm Candace Cameron Bray.
Tom Bergeron.
You're watching Autism Live.
And you're watching Autism Live.
And you're watching Autism Live.
You're watching Autism Live.
Love having all those wonderful faces that are watching Autism Live. Good job, Samantha. And we're back here with Ask Dr. Doreen. Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh is here answering your questions. We're having lots of interesting gremlin things happening today, but we're here and we're excited about it. There's a note that somebody had written in and said, hi Shannon, not really a question, but I have a compliment. I just recently enrolled my 3-year-old son in CARD ABA program. The Good Doctor is my most favorite show on TV these days, so I watched your wonderful interview with Kobe Bird. Between folks like yourself, TGD, not sure what that is. Oh, The Good Doctor, hello. And Kobe, I've been given hope and excitement for the future of my son, so thank you for all that you do. First of all, I want to say thank you. We love The Good Doctor too, and have loved getting to meet some of the people who are working on The Good Doctor. We have so enjoyed that our good friend Kobe Bird was featured on the show and that we had an opportunity for him to come back on the show and talk about that experience. And I love that you appreciated that interview because I took a lot of heat. I'm still taking a lot of heat on that interview and it's totally justified that many people have written in and said that I did not give him enough opportunity to talk because I'm a mom and I was so excited because Kobe is a friend of the family and I talked so much of the time. So we have to have Kobe back and I'm going to put tape on my mouth and just let Kobe talk because because I heard what you said. A lot of people were very fatutzed at me that I did not let him speak because he is such an eloquent speaker. You're absolutely right. But I'm most especially happy that all of this has gotten you in with CARD. I just, I know that they didn't ask a question, but I would love it if you would just talk about what happens when a 3-year-old comes to CARD and what's possible. When you get in at the right time and at the right amount. That's the other part of this equation.
Right.
So talk about what the prescription is.
So, it's and we all will go through, you will experience some difficulties, and so will we. And those are just kind of logistical difficulties, and they have to do with things like making your child's schedule and making sure your child gets all the hours that we recommend, and getting your child's hours reauthorized. And these are all just kind of like logistical issues, which honestly we have no right to complain about, because years ago nobody even had funding. So being able to be in this position is wonderful. Now that you're in, our goal will be to increase hours, and hopefully your child at 3 is getting a full ABA program, which means 40 hours a week of ABA or somewhere close to that. It is very, very hard for us to convince insurance companies that it's important to keep these intensive hours for the young children, but for the first 2 years, it is easier. After 2 years, it becomes much, much harder. So the one thing I ask for you as a parent is please dedicate yourself to this program as much as you can. It makes a big difference if you're dedicated to the program and versus not, because parents who are serious about the program, who are dedicated to the program, do 2 things differently, or a few things actually. They never cancel. So you never cancel a session no matter what else is going on, because really nothing else is more important than your child's ABA program right now, just for the next couple of years. Second thing is that if we cancel, if our therapists cancel, you will be very proactive about it, and you will tell the supervisor and the operations manager, and they will be talking to the therapists. And we have a very detailed process for actually sort of writing up therapists who cancel. We highly, highly reward therapists who don't cancel. So we're on your team in that regard, and we really want our therapists to be dedicated to your staff, to your child as well. The next thing is that if you are dedicated to the program and committed to the program, you will learn as much ABA as you can. We have a fantastic parent training program, and it takes a ton of energy from us to convince our parents that it's important for them to get trained. So please, please get trained in all the areas that apply to your child. We will offer you all sorts of training in home, video-based, live. You can talk to senior supervisors. You have sessions set up with your supervisor. Please get trained. It's really important for you to follow through with the therapy that the individuals working with your child do, and then they will follow through. When you do that, then you're just increasing what your child learns, and that's what it's all about. It's really about what can we teach in the period of time that we have your child, because all the behavioral stuff goes away. The challenging behavior, it goes away as your child learns how to communicate. So when we teach the child communication and social behavior, language, etc., the child's challenging behaviors just fade away because the child is no longer frustrated. So what becomes really important is, when 5 o'clock or 8 o'clock or whatever comes and the therapist is done and leaves, you can take those same techniques and apply them to your child so that they will continue to get therapy for all purposes around the clock. And that's important. And so the last thing is, please have a very open dialogue and conversation with your supervisor, and make sure that the supervisor, that's the BCBA who's running the program, is very involved and engaged and listens to your issues. Do not hesitate to take your issues further up if you need to. I hope you don't need to. But we have hundreds and hundreds of supervisors, and I want to make sure that our patients are always cared for. And so please don't worry about telling, the next person up. Be patient. Make sure you just treat our people as your friends, your team, your child's team. Honestly, the biggest successes come to those families that work with us as really good team members, and they're understanding of our limitations, but also they are involved and engaged so that our people at the local sites recognize how important this is to you. And then we will all do the best we can. And given that your child is this young, you are opening the door for the most positive outcome, because this is the best age, age 3 to 5, best time for us to be teaching your child everything he or she needs to function normally in the environment, to do well, to grow up and not need us. So I'm very excited for you, and this is going to be a fun journey. Every step of the way, you're going to get to appreciate incredible milestones and goals that your child achieves. It's fantastic. Good luck. Let's work together to make this happen.
Part of the family. I want to say really quickly to consolidate, because CARD did a lot of research and continues to do a lot of research on outcomes and why do some kids make more progress than others. But there were 3 things that came out of a recent study that they could point to that said these 3 things indicate kids that will most likely make tremendous, the most progress. And one of them was frequency, how many hours. And
it's the #1 thing.
Right? And then the second thing was having an experienced BCBA on your case, which CARD gives to you. Plus, CARD has oversight over all the BCBAs so that it's not just one experienced BCBA that has eyes on your kids' program. There are several that do. And then the third thing was parent involvement, parents learning what to do and parents staying involved. That if you can put those 3 things together, and when the going gets tough, and it will, at lots of different times, if you can put those 3 things together and go, we're doing though, you're going to do well. So those are the 3 things to be looking out for. Now, while you were having this wonderful conversation, I got the Facebook up and running, and we've got a lot of people watching from different places. Want to do a shout out to Cornwall, Ontario, Ohio, Phoenix, Arizona, Asheville, North Carolina. More that are coming up, but we also, you use the R word, the recovery word, and we have people who have questions and feelings and emotions that come with this, and people are saying, what do you mean? Somebody's just flat out, you don't recover from autism. I'm trying to, Augusta, Georgia's watching too. So somebody said, you don't recover from autism, you can learn to help them live and work with it. And somebody else said, well, I just started watching when she said that 2 kids recovered, so I want to know what she meant. But I would agree with you with not recovering, but I just want to learn more about it and about helping your child. We know that words have so much meaning for people, that we attach meaning to words. And sometimes when people use the word recovery, people have emotions. So let's define what you mean by it. But I want to first ask everybody, I had to at a certain point, you got to open your mind to possibilities.
Right. So, and I have to say, Shannon, it also evokes a lot of emotion in me.
I bet.
Because my entire life has been dedicated to this field.
Yeah.
So let me just, I try very hard to not get defensive as well. So I'll do my best. Because there's one group of people that I absolutely have no right to disagree with, and those are the folks who have a diagnosis themselves and are in some way find that word offensive. I have absolutely no right to tell you how to feel by any means. And in fact, I apologize if there's anyone listening who is on the spectrum themselves and they find the word recovery somewhat insulting. I don't understand it, but I respect it completely because it's your world, it's your diagnosis. I have no right to make any comments about how you feel about a particular word that somewhat defines who you are. So I get that. That population aside, if you are a parent and you do not believe that an individual with autism has, not every individual, but that some individuals with autism have the ability to become absolutely 100% recovered, and I mean that. In other words, they have nothing different than any other child or an adult or individual, then I have issue with that. And I want to talk about that because If you haven't seen it, it doesn't mean that it doesn't exist. Now, I have, and I would recommend that the first thing you do is that you go, and I will define it, I'm happy to define it, and I will talk about it for as long as you guys want, but please don't imply that my entire life and the life of thousands of individuals who have worked in this field has been useless. If we didn't recover kids, there wouldn't be insurance funding for this right now. Let's just start there.
Yeah.
You don't get insurance funding for things that are just remedial. You get insurance funding for things that are classified as medical necessity, which means it's a life or death type thing. It means it's the difference in your child's outcome altogether. So this is no joke, and it's not a matter of my opinion either. Back in the 70s and 80s, when we used to do therapy, recovery was published in 1987. The first article that published recovery defined it, and that study, I will go back and talk about, was a study that came out of UCLA where I was on that project. And basically what it was, and this was published in 1987, the studies showed that we had 3 groups of children. The first group received 40 hours of one-to-one ABA therapy from us at UCLA in the project that was called the Autism Project. The second group received 10 hours of the same therapy from us again. The reason they received 10 hours was because they lived too far away from UCLA and we could not access them on a regular basis. They were very far. They were like an hour drive. And our therapists at UCLA couldn't go out there that often. Okay, so they received 10 hours a week. The ones that were closer received 40 hours a week. And then there was a third group which received 10 hours a week of a different type of therapy from the other side of UCLA, which is now called Semel Institute. Back then was called Neuropsychiatric Institute. And that was sort of a different, kind of an eclectic approach. After 2.5 years, the result was that 47%, half of the kids in our intensive group had recovered, as opposed to 2% in the other 2 groups who received 10 hours of therapy. Now, what is recovered back then? How did we define it? The way we defined it, it was 3 different criteria. One was that there was a normal IQ. So these individuals were tested on intelligence tests. We tested them before beginning intervention and then after 2.5 years to 3 years of intervention, and their IQ was normal. Normal means it was around 100 points. What else did we do? We also placed them in regular education first grade, and they were there in regular ed without any assistance. And this is, we're talking back in the 80s, okay? So that was the second criteria. The third criteria was an independent psychiatrist would remove the individuals, like would see the individual and say, no, this person doesn't classify for autism. Okay, that is how we defined it back then. Now, how do we define it now? Like, so many years have gone by and we've learned a lot more about autism, and we've seen different gradients of autism too, by the way. So the way that I define it, and the way that we have now published on it multiple times, by the way, we've now also published on, we had a publication that looked at 34 of our kids, I believe, and we went back and we checked not only their IQ, but also adaptive testing. So that's called the Vineland Adaptive Behavior Scale, VABS. These are all standardized measures, by the way. These are not measures that we've just made up and said, oh, they work for us. This is how any child would be tested. So the adaptive measure looks at things like daily living, socialization, communication, etc. And all of these children get to the level of normal. Normal, which means they are indistinguishable from their peers. Indistinguishable from peers. That's a very important term. So now when we call someone recovered, we look at IQ, adaptive functioning, social functioning, and language functioning. Those 4 things, as well as I even go above and beyond, and I test my kids on executive functioning and pragmatic language. We give a series of tests at the very, very end where we look at every area, and we want to make sure that the kids are really, really doing well in school, they have friends, they're doing fine. So Yes, there are those individuals who still have signs and symptoms of autism. Those are not the individuals that we are classifying as recovered fully. Yes, there are individuals who will even lose their diagnosis. They no longer fit the criteria for ASD. You could say, for all practical purposes, those individuals are recovered because they no longer classify for a diagnosis. If they went and saw a doctor today, the doctor would not give them the diagnosis of autism. So for all practical purposes, those individuals are recovered. But at CARD, for research purposes, we go above that. We go above that criteria, and we do a ton of testing to prove that this individual fits right in the middle of peers, or in many cases, higher than their peers, because a lot of our kids have incredible memory and unbelievable skills. They don't lose those skills. They're just gaining, learning other things they need so that they can function in normal society. Many of these individuals not only go on to school, but they go to college. I have been around in the field long enough where I have individuals who've been married. I'm waiting for my first married couple to actually have children so we can see how that goes. But what I'm saying is that it is absolutely possible for individuals to do extremely well. Now, not every individual, and we don't know why. To be honest with you, we will start with, and the younger the child is, as Shannon said, the more hours they get. We've also shown these things. It's a matter, this is how I see autism, and can I keep ranting?
You can.
Sorry about
You're
that.
taking us to church. No, people are liking that. We have people from northern India saying more on recovery, and
I just don't
people
want,
are thrilled to hear.
I don't want people, you know, many years ago, you guys, this is one thing about being in this field for 40 years. I will never forget, I was probably in my late 20s. I had finished my doctorate, I was licensed, I had just opened CARD. And I remember testifying, maybe I was like early 30s, I don't remember. I remember testifying because we were trying to get funding for people back then. I remember testifying in court for a family here in California. And the judge, this is where I've come from, and this is why I get so upset with people doubting the fact that there's a lot of potential for people on the spectrum to recover. And I want to talk about that because there's nothing wrong with having ASD other than the fact that it makes it harder for you to integrate and benefit from what society has to offer. That's all. Just as if you had hearing impairment. There's nothing wrong with it. No one's boo-hooing it or saying anything bad about it, but it is definitely harder for an individual who's hearing impaired to use what's around them in society because they need modifications. It is difficult for someone who's blind. It is difficult for someone who has to use a crutch. Everything makes it more easy if you are able to integrate in society, if you're able to benefit from normal education, if you're benefiting from having friends. All of those things, I think personally, are beneficial to you. So why not allow us to teach the individual as much as we possibly can? How does autism, to me, this is how autism is. So first of all, to begin with, I mean, I formed my own theories of where autism comes from. But from my perspective, autism is a diagnosis that has to do with the inability to detoxify fast enough from all these environmental toxins that we experience. These affect the child's developing brain in different ways. Some children will have very severe effects based on the developmental period. Let's say the child is very, very early on and they're not able, they have high toxicity due to exposure to various things, which we can't even measure. There's no way we can measure all the toxicity in our environment. There's too many types of toxicity, and we also don't know the genetic composition that leads to this low redox. So it's a combination of being unable to detoxify and being exposed to all these toxins, leading to the differences in how we learn. You know, I was just reading again last night another study that came out on sensory sensitivities. To me, this is really about the sensory input, because if you look at a child, a young child, how do they learn? They learn by the things they see and hear and sense and so on. This is how we all learn, right? there's so much we have not yet learned, and we're beginning to now learn about how individuals with autism see things. I mean, Temple Grandin tells us this from years and years ago when she was a child, that she used to see things in individual boxes, right? We now know through studies that individuals with autism actually, when they see a scene, they're seeing certain things that we're not seeing, and they're not seeing other things that we're seeing.
Right.
And you know what? I guarantee you there's differences amongst us similarly. We just don't know it.
Yeah.
Because we are within the similar realm. So if I look at something like right now, I'm looking in that direction, of course the first thing I see is the camera. But at the same time, without even diverting my eyes, I see you, Shannon, I see the screen, I see all the things in the room. Individuals with autism don't have those same exact capabilities. They see other things. Like when they're looking at the camera, they'll see the logo on the bottom of the camera where I wouldn't necessarily. And so because of the fact that they perceive things sensory through their senses differently, because of how their brain was developing early on, they learn differently. It is just as simple as that. They learn differently. Now, when they learn differently, sometimes it is so far from what the environment has allowed us. Like, just as an example, if I'm auditorily, it's the same thing. They have different sensitivities and selectivity. So auditory, let's assume I hear sounds more than I hear language. One of my own kids said this to me. Andy said this to me. You know, one of my recovered kids, he said to me, I used to hear background noises like the door screeching much more prevalent than the sounds of language. If that's the case, you're never going to learn language. You are going, because language is a background noise. Yeah. You're going to learn to block language. So their sensory input is different. If we're receiving information visually and auditorily in different ways, we're not going to learn the same way. What does ABA do? ABA adjusts that. That's all it does. ABA sits with the child and allows the child to learn through different modalities. It gives the child the ability to pay attention now to all the different things in the room instead of the logo. It gives the child practice at a very early age to listen to the sound of language as opposed to those background sounds. So ABA corrects or redirects the learning of the child and intensifies it, because a lot of our children, you start at 3, I'm happy. If you start at 2, I'm even happier, because the child's learning has gone awry. The child is learning things like that little logo, like that background noise, and the sooner I get them, the more I can teach them. Yeah. Now, if I have a 3-year-old, I have 2 years, 3 years where I can teach the child everything they need to reach the normal functioning of a 5 or 6-year-old. I will do my best to do that. And that involves lots and lots and lots of hours of therapy, but it also involves the parent making sure the child is sleeping, making sure the child is not eating anything they're allergic to, making sure the child doesn't have massive gastrointestinal issues and pain. Because the more comfortable the child is, the more ready they are for learning, the more they're sleeping, the more healthy they are, the more they will take in. And the more they take in, if we all work as a team, the individual is taking in all this stuff. There's no question in my mind that individuals with autism can learn. That's the key to it. How much can they learn? It just has to do with how much practice. If someone comes to you today, to me, and says, hey, at your age, can you learn Chinese? I'll say, oh my God, it doesn't sound like it's ever possible. But you know what? It is possible. It's just a matter of how much time and effort I put into it. Yeah. That's what it's all about. So I'll take a deep breath.
I appreciate it, because we see the passion that you have for the subject and how much you love our kids. I just want to say as a parent that, you know, so often when we're at like a walk or something like that, a parent will bring up a child and say, can you, at one of the last walks we went to, a dad said, can you explain to my daughter who's 10 what autism is in her little brother? And I was like, oh my gosh, okay. you know, rolling up the sleeves, like, how am I going to explain this to a 10-year-old? And what I said to her was, you know computers, right? And she said, yes. And I said, okay, there are some computers that are Macs and there are some computers that are PCs, right? And she said, yeah. And I said, which one do you like better? And she said, well, I like this on this and this on this. I said, okay, there are brains that are Macs and there are brains that are PCs. But if all you ever did was teach a Mac PC language, it wouldn't get very far.
That's really good.
It wouldn't get very far.
Right.
So, right now, but Macs are great.
Yep.
And Macs can do things that PCs can't do.
That's right.
Nobody's saying that it isn't bad. But if all you ever teach a Mac is PC, and I said, your brother's a Mac.
Right.
And right now, he's speaking a different language. His brain is speaking a different language. So he's getting therapy, and he's going to learn how to translate the languages. It's not going to change the fact that he's a Mac, right? But he is not going to be held back by the fact that you speak a different language.
Absolutely. I mean, Shannon, I experience this a lot of times myself when I'm learning different languages, right? When I was learning German, I remember that, like, in the beginning, I would be in Germany and people are talking and I'd be like, okay, I got that word, I got that one, but this is way too hard. I'm just going to do my own thing. And I'd find myself becoming more and more isolated, not isolated because I'd be going out with my husband and his family, but it was more about, like, I just would kind of, like, my brain would start floating to other topics because I couldn't understand what's going on around me. As time passed and as I learned more and more single words, even to this day, when I go back, I completely understand everything now. And I never even took a single class in German at all. It was just a matter of practice and exposure, and I could pick it up. An opportunity. And I know it's the same thing because I went through, it's the same exact thing as learning languages. And as you said, the Mac PC thing is the same exact thing. We, as kids, our kids are amazing. Sometimes I'll see children who are like 5 years old, and they're still the sweetest human being ever. They have no aggression, yet they can't communicate at all. And I think to myself, oh my dear Lord, how is this little guy not getting aggressive? How is this guy not getting ticked off because no one understands him? And I always tell the parents, it's because of you. The parent has been amazing as figuring out what his needs are. And you know what? You need to stop. Like, this is the very interesting thing. I think you may have said this to me, or a mom said this to me and said, do you realize that when they're babies, right? We have to figure out with our babies why they're crying. Is it a cry because they need a diaper change, or they're hungry, or they're angry or hurt, right? What's going on? Yeah. So we figure that out. With kids with autism, we never stop that. Yeah. And with normal typically developing kids, at some point we're like, you're 2 years old, you need to use your words, and we don't do that with our kids. The reason I get so passionate about this subject of recovery is that personally I feel that if I don't set a high enough bar, I am not doing what I'm meant to be doing. I am accepting less than the child that I'm working with can produce. And then I'll be no different from everyone else who's just babysitting. And that's not what my world is about, nor is it what anyone at CARD is supposed to be doing, because our goal is not to maintain the kids where they are. Our goal is to teach them. And whether we can teach them one new subject or content or 1,000, we have to push. We have to push higher and higher, because otherwise we're just accepting, and the child will not go beyond the limit we set for them. As far as I'm concerned, individuals with autism have no limits. There is no upper limit. I want to push them for the rest of their lives to be happy, to do the best they can. And it's not really about recovery or not recovery. It's just about that limit. It's about never expecting the child to do anything less than I would expect anyone else to do.
I think too, and one of our colleagues has asked me to do more on the show about recovery, and I expressed to him, I said, I want to, but it always ends up in a discussion because it's a very volatile word for people.
It is.
But I do think that, and I'm just going to apologize and say we're going to do, for not having done this before, I'm going to apologize. We have to show more of it, because just like when your husband is still talking about having met these people, and to say, oh my gosh, he lives with you and knows what you do and sees everybody, but when you see it and you can see where it came from, I think in the beginning people go, oh, even people who've been around it for a while, they go, oh, I didn't know that was possible. That's right. We started at CARD, we had heard what was possible, and then about we had been having therapy for 4 years, and I introduced my husband to an adult who had recovered, and we had a whole conversation with him, and then afterwards we walked away, and I said, wasn't that amazing? Don't you feel like that's so incredible? And he said, it was a great conversation. What are you getting so excited about? And I said, you understand who that was that you just talked to. You understand that he was a kiddo on the spectrum. He's one of the recovered kids. And my husband clutched his chest.
And said, oh my God.
And said, are you, the guy I was just talking to that we were talking about, are you talking about that guy? That guy is a recovered kid. That guy had, and my husband was overwhelmed.
Yeah.
And he said, oh my gosh, Shannon, you see this all the time. That's the first time I've ever seen it. I need to be showing you more of that. So that's what I'm going to do.
And honestly, for our viewers, please go on Amazon and order Recovered Journeys Through Autism. I made that film because it was for parents who went through this exactly the thing that you guys are going through. These are parents who were at very high level university settings getting their kids diagnosed and were told, put your child in special ed, just save your money, you're going to need it later on. Your child's never going to recover. This is not something that you recover from, all that sort of stuff. And this is, we're talking, you guys, back, 90s, early 90s. And they didn't believe it, and they put all their efforts into it. And you will see these children when they started, and you will see these children at age 13, whatever, 11, 17, when they're done. And I wish, I don't have time right now, but one of my dreams is to do a follow-up on those kids, because the child who on there is, to me, looks the most severe is, I can't even tell you what he's doing right now in the world, because it's so high level. And he's, all 4 of those kids are doing incredibly well in their worlds. They are one of them is lecturing across the world about various things. They are more than recovered.
Not about autism. I want to point out he's not lecturing about autism. No, he's lecturing about scientific
He's talking about science. And he's getting his PhD in an area of science. And honestly, when I listen to his lectures, I'm like, good Lord, like, wow.
You gotta love it.
So,
Okay. Because we're going to take a break. I'm going to stop you. We're going to take a break because you guys are writing in things.
We want to read them.
We piqued people's interest. And you guys want to know about funding. And we've got a mom who's going it alone, who's hit a little bit of a wall here that I want to make sure that we support. Short break. We'll be right back. Stick with us. Parent-to-parent token economies are a great way to get to good behavior with your child. So first of all, let's talk about what is a token economy. It's just a visual representation of reinforcement or a reward that's going to come later on for behavior that you've done now. So I've got a couple examples here of token economies that I want to show you. But one of the most important things to remember with a token economy is that it's essential that whatever the child is working for be meaningful to them. So here, this is a 2-part token economy. I've got a list of things for the child to pick from, to pick what they want to work for. So the child would pick off the one they want, put it on their other token economy, and you can see it says, I'm working for a play date. What a great thing to work for. And as this child progresses through their day at school, every time they do a task and they do a good job, they're going to get a token to put on this token economy. And we've got a rule in place for them that says maybe you have to get 3 tokens in order to get that reward, which today is a play date. And as the child gets better, we're going to make it harder and harder. Maybe next week it's going to be 4 tokens to get the play date. This is another token economy here. This is a task completion token economy, so every time the child completes a task that there's a picture of, they can peel off a token and put it on to demonstrate that they have completed that task. Again, it's essential that they get a really wonderful, meaningful reward for having gotten these tokens. Using a token economy can be much simpler than this too, because you can download them to put a free app on any one of your devices. Right here on my phone, I've got a free app. easy kid tokens, and when my child does a task and completes it, and he can specify what the stickers are. In this case, it is a ladybug, and when he gets 3 of them, then he's going to get his reward. This is a really simple way to take something with you when you're going on an outing and make sure that your child is staying on task and getting rewarded for the things that they do. It leads to good behavior. One of the most frightening things there is when your child wanders away or elopes. Hurts my heart when I see those baby pictures of my child. Are all moms like that? Do you go, oh, like it's just pain? But anyway, we're here with Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh, and she is answering your questions in real time. We had a lengthy discussion about, I think, good things. One of the things that somebody wrote in and said, but what's the cost of the program to get the help? Because she says, we see so many times that there are programs to help our kids, but they're all, you know, double dollar signs. And that's certainly true with ABA.
It is definitely true because it's very human intensive. So, you know, I will never, for every hour you need a therapist, and the price of therapist is going up because credentials are increasing, which means they have to get more and more training. So it is very expensive.
And yet the cost of what insurance will pay sometimes is going down,
yes,
which is not the way things should. They want more credentialing and they want to pay the people less.
It's gone down a third over the last like maybe 5 years.
And yet they want more credentialing, more time spent, and so that equation is hard for everyone.
It's very hard for providers. It's incredibly hard because we have to cover all of their overhead costs as well. But anyway, for a parent, you have to, if you are able to go to a state where there is insurance, which now we have, how many states do you know? 40?
We are 3 away from being fully 50.
Yeah, so we're really almost there. 47 states have mandates. Most of these mandates are pretty good mandates, and therefore that means your health insurance should cover it. Medicaid covers this. We accept Medicaid everywhere in the country, and I really recommend that you put effort into trying to get that going, because, you know, unless you're a millionaire, it's very hard to cover the cost of this type of thing. How much does it cost? It probably costs around, I want to say, 60 to 80,000 a year, and your child is going to be looking at 2 to 3 years at least, so of that intensity. And of course then as the intensity goes down, the cost goes down. Now, in the old days, you know, before we had insurance, there were people recovering their kids. How did they do it? They got others to help. Now, there's a lot of different places you can go. One of the kids on recovered the video. Mom was in rural Idaho, and she used to honestly, she was in a very small village, and she's one of my heroes because she got, you know, everyone in this town to come and train with us, and we would fly out there and train everyone. So the neighbors would all come. It was unbelievable. Like, she had neighbors doing 2 hours, 4 hours a week, every week, just as a service to the family. And that's how we added up the 40 hours, and it was amazing.
Yeah.
She did a lot of her work, the work herself, and she was incredible. But the truth is that this is not something I recommend anybody does on their own. I couldn't do it. I couldn't do it if I wanted to get involved with doing it for my own kids. It's too much. And it's just too emotional for the parent, too. It's too much. So you got to get help.
And honestly, you know, we talk here about what's, you know, good, better, best, right? And Dr. Granpeesheh has given you guys a lot of resources if you're not near a card office,
right.
Although she's opening more card offices. But there's the card book.
Yes.
We actually had a question about that I don't know if we're going to get to. But there's the card book. So for people that don't have internet, there's Skills.
The biggest
available
resource
to you.
that we have, I think, is Skills. And that's why I made it. I made it for parents.
And a companion to Skills is IBT.
That's right.
That an Institute for Behavioral Training, so you can get trained in all the things that a therapist gets trained in on IBT, and you can get all the lessons that CARD has at Skills. And you can use IBT to train your neighbors. You don't, you know, it might be helpful to have somebody. There are times that you can do a consultation, but you can become a registered behavior technician. You can become a board certified autism technician through IBT, and your neighbors can, and the local sorority can, and the Kiwanis Club can.
And the cost of it is incredibly low. I don't know exactly what the full training package costs, but honestly, it's got to be less than $500 or something. It's not that much. And you
I
can
think it's
use
like
it,
$425.
There you go. And you can use it for as many people as you want, and you can repeat it. You can do whatever you need to do to get all these people trained. This, I don't know, I think it's at 70 something a month.
Yes.
And you have access to more than you need on here. Between the two, you can actually get this done at extremely low cost. So
we actually have a discount that is going to be coming from, if you are an Autism Live viewer, and I'm not sure what the code is, but I think it's A Live. So if you go to Order Skills, tell them that, say Shannon sent you, and there's a code, I think it's A Live. I'm going to get that to you guys this week. I'm going to do that so you can get a discount on it because you're a viewer of Autism Live. So there's that. Now, you still have a ways to go, and it's still a lot to do, and it's a Herculean effort, but
yes,
it's so much better than
it's
not.
The cookbook. We're giving you the training, we're giving you kind of the curriculum, we're giving you the assessments that are necessary, we're giving you the ability to measure your child's progress and to know exactly what to teach next. Okay, so all of that is there. It's just a ton of work. It's a lot of work.
I want to go right now to, we had a question from our West Virginia mom. She said, hello, West Virginia mom here. My question is, what should be my realistic goal of time spent daily doing ABA? As you know, both of my kids are on the spectrum, and I had to pull my daughter in homeschool due to severe bullying. I'm finding it more and more difficult to schedule time for one-on-one time working with them. I knew it would be difficult doing it on my own, as we have no resources to cover the cost of ABA. And I was not prepared for how difficult it is, even with years of training. I go through these periods where everything is working well, and these other phases, like now, where I'm almost in a panic. Can't get my hands on enough research and articles and information, and I get incredibly overwhelmed. What should my realistic goals be with each child in terms of amount of therapy done? I know that varies by person, but any input at all would be greatly appreciated, and thanks for all you guys do. Love from West Virginia. It's that I know that you're trying to work, and I want to say that I see what you're doing, and you are an amazing, amazing mom, man.
Yeah, honestly, I wish there was a way I could help you more, because you are an amazing mom. You know, it's hard. I can't give a prescription because I don't know the kids. When you have young children, generally the general rule is, if the child is starting below the age of, I want to say 4.5, then you should be trying to do an intensive program, which is like 30 to 40 hours a week. And you should do that as long as the child is going at a very fast pace. If the child is it doesn't matter what level of impairment they have when they're that young, you should just give the child full force. When the child becomes school age and starts getting into like 7 and 8, then you sort of need to readjust your program, because there's all these other things that are now hitting the child's world. You know, sometimes I'll even tell parents, the child's doing so well, like, don't worry about academics right now. Math is not as important as language. You know, so you'll have to make those choices when the child gets to a certain age. The older you get, the less funding there will be for it, and the more severe we just actually did an analysis, Shannon, of our database we looked at 3,400 children, and we concluded that what is being recommended, we're very happy about, is that the more severe the child's needs, then the more support, so the more hours they should be getting with severity. And that is true all the way up to 18. Okay. When we're looking at a child who's sometimes past 18, there's all kinds of variation, but literally we looked at ages 2 to 18, and we noticed that if the child is more severe, like they have more symptoms, they are definitely getting more hours. That's the way it should be. But you know, you're one mom and 2 kids. I don't know how you can do this. I wish you could get more people involved. And why don't you have funding? You should have funding in Virginia.
Okay, so here's what I'm going to ask you to do. You have my email, but I'm going to give it to you again, s.penrod@autism-live.com. Let's you and I connect and come up with a plan, because things are constantly evolving. And I know when I see you saying that, you're doing more research and stuff, and I understand that. I get that. You and I totally get it. But let's use your time productively. Let's make sure that you're getting everything that you can get, and let's beat the bushes, as they say, and see if there's more that we can find in those bushes. How about that? So we're past time for you,
Yes,
because I know that we have to let you go. But we want to thank you.
It's my pleasure.
And thank you for the
I
inspirational
hope I didn't
talk.
offend any of our viewers. I just get very passionate about what our kids are able to do.
Well, and I have seen what you do firsthand. So I'm going to say to you, you stay passionate. You don't need to apologize.
Thank you.
I will take whatever guff. That's what I will do.
Thank you.
And then we'll sort it all out. But it's all good, because when people are on your side, you got to recognize it. She's on our side.
I know a cute little blue-eyed boy, and his name is Jack.
Jack Riley.
He got a big, warm, blue-eyed soul that makes your heart beat fast.
Exciting.
I say Jack, Jack, Jack is my buddy. Jack, Jack, Jack is my buddy. Everybody around is so down with Jack.
Jack. Oh, that was okay. Try again. Go over there and walk back to her again. Jack Riley, come back and walk nicely to her. Walk nicely. Oh, yeah, high fives! Yeah, you did it! She's so happy.
So you guys are doing more programs trying to incorporate sister?
Yes, trying to have them tolerate being around her, and practicing having them engage in the same activity. For his target right now is 2 minutes, so we're hopefully trying to increase the time. But she's going to be around forever, so we do want him to get used to being around her and accepting that she will get into his stuff every now and then, or all the time. We're going to do nice playing with Lainey, okay? We're going to do it 5 times, all right? All right, so you put on a piece, and then Lainey Grace can put one on. Yay! Look, you get your first axe. Good job, buddy. We're going to keep going. That was excellent. Okay, Lainey's turn.
Here you go.
Good job. Okay, Lainey. Okay, I'll help your sister. Yes, a potato head.
Wait, your turn.
Good job. Should we put the ear on Lainey? Purpose of outings that we go on with our kids is to have them get exposure to the community, and we go with them to assist the parents and to model for them how to redirect inappropriate behaviors when they do happen, how to even prompt the kids to interact with other kids, so when they do go out and we're not there, it's a lot easier for them, and it just becomes more natural for the parents and the kids.
Usually I'm pretty on edge at a park when he walks up to a group. I never know what he's going to do. Sometimes it's imagined, and then sometimes he justifies it.
Good morning and welcome to Let's Talk Autism with Shannon and Nancy. I'm Nancy Allspaw Jackson.
And I'm Shannon Penrod, and so thrilled to be here with my good friend
Thrilled to be
Nancy.
here with you too.
It's fabulous to be here. And we got a lot to cover and a
we
big,
have
big
good
show
guests.
and good guests. It's really going to be an exciting show. We've got a bunch of in the news. We've got Amy Scheitbauer is going to be with us, and she is an expert in changing things at schools, which I want to know more about.
Me too.
One of the stories that we have in particular in the news today is about schools and some people who don't think things are on the right track. And are consequently have filed a suit against Secretary of Education Betsy DeVos. So it'd be interesting to hear from somebody who's about making things better and what she thinks and feels about that. And then we also have somebody that has a connection to your past.
Howie Hoffman. He went to the same high school I did.
How strange is that?
Yeah.
Because that's I discovered that once at a walk, and I was like, now that's just a strange turn of events.
Right.
But he's joining us from the incredible Exceptional Minds, which we've featured them before on the show and talked about some of the things that they do. It's a remarkable place. Howie's going to talk with us in particular about an aspect of Exceptional Minds that we haven't covered as much, their studio, the working studio that they have there. It gives an opportunity for individuals of all kinds of abilities to really learn a craft and have the ability to have a job in the industry, the film industry.
Which is so important. We're talking a lot about jobs today, too.
Yes, we are talking about jobs. And I just want to put in a plug that tomorrow, the entire show tomorrow is about the arts and autism, which I think is a really exciting thing. So it's almost like we're revving up for that with Howie.
Okay.
But so shall we jump in with our top story here, the benefits of employing people on the autism spectrum?
Oh, yes. Let's see. I don't have that as my...
Okay. Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay. I've got it here. Yeah,
okay.
Here we go.
So this is an article that we saw this week in Forbes, which I thought was interesting. And the title of it is The Benefit of Employing People with Autism. Now, we've talked about this extensively.
Extensively. It seems like almost every week.
But I love the fact that this article exists in Forbes so that maybe it'll get to some people who hadn't really thought about the fact that there are benefits. For those of you who know people who are on the autism spectrum, you know that they're incredibly loyal. They're incredibly punctual.
Yes.
And everybody is different, right? But when there is something that they are good at, they are very good at it, and they care deeply about doing it well. How could you ask for anything better in an employee?
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
An honest to a fault.
Right.
Right? So we encourage you, check out this article in Forbes for all the reasons that they feel.
Yeah, it talks about some of the big corporations such as Microsoft and SAP that have launched programs to attract candidates with ASD for roles that require certain skill sets.
You see more and more companies that are big companies buying a vowel and going, oh, we see that we've got to do a few things to make our work environment compatible for individuals who are on the autism spectrum, but that it's worth it.
It is worth it.
It's absolutely worth it. Okay, we've got an article about baby teeth might be a way to predict autism even earlier.
I thought this was fascinating.
Isn't it fascinating?
Zinc and copper metabolism cycles in the layers of baby teeth may be able to predict which children will develop autism spectrum disorders.
And isn't this interesting? Because remember we had a couple of years ago, we had the doctor on, whose name escapes me right now, who was asking for baby teeth because he was trying out medicines to see if they would potentially alter anything. So it sort of makes sense that you could reverse engineer and go the other way and say, oh, wait a second, the baby teeth can predict whether these kids would have autism.
Yeah.
We keep looking for a better, faster way of predicting autism so that we can start that early intervention earlier.
Right.
And do it with some certainty, because you see that we have, I would like to spit and throw things, especially this week, for all the parents that right now are having difficulty with their insurance company reauthorizing ABA that they've been having for a while and saying, oh, you have to go get another diagnosis.
Really?
And and it's maddening. Insurance is trying to find ways to shove some people to the side.
Right.
And even if they can deny services for 6 months, that's a whole lot of money that they save, but it's a whole lot of good things happening for our kids that we can't afford.
No.
So this could be a way of saying, nope, this child's at risk, insurance has to pay for it, and they can't monkey around with it.
Yeah.
Because you and I both, and you especially, have been in a situation where you took the time to get diagnosed and didn't get the proper diagnosis.
Right, exactly.
So this could really help. And this came to us from MedPage Today, so check it out. about baby teeth. And then I loved in Psychology Today all these really interesting articles. An article this last week, What Autism Isn't.
Yeah, that was an interesting article.
It's a good read, you guys. Because so many people, I was in a conversation yesterday with somebody talking about how they're like, I wonder if so-and-so might be on the autism spectrum, an adult. And then we broke down into a conversation of, well, no, maybe they have certain aspects of, but they don't qualify for a diagnosis. And, what is it and what isn't it? I hate it when my neurotypical friends who don't know about autism take somebody who is clearly just a megalomaniac who is all about them, and they go, well, isn't that autism? Because they don't do perspective taking.
Right.
That makes me mad.
Right.
If you're a narcissist, that is not the same as autism.
Right. And not all quirky people are autistic.
That's right. So interesting article, Psychology Today, What Autism Isn't. Does every quirky person really have autism itself? It says, and do any of them? Right. I think that we are all of us that are parents of kids on the spectrum, we have certain attributes that fit on the spectrum. I think the vast majority of us don't qualify for diagnoses, but I always like to say that, puppies don't have kittens.
Right.
Right? Kind of makes sense. Anyway.
And then you brought in this story about the education department sued over handling of disability-related complaints.
We covered last week that Betsy DeVos, carte blanche, said there were a whole bunch of things that the Obama administration had put in place to make sure that individuals who are especially of underserved populations don't get left behind. We know that when your child goes to school, there is supposed to be a process of identifying who's at risk and referring them to special ed and helping them to get a diagnosis. It's one of the ways that we need to catch this diagnosis, because not everybody has access to all the materials that you and I had, and even you and I had a hard time. So the Obama administration, in their 11th hour, put in a bunch, and they weren't big. It was just saying you can't compare apples to oranges. You have to compare apples to apples. So if you decide how you want to screen for these kids and how you identify, but you can't play with the numbers. That's rational and reasonable. And she just penned it all and went, we don't really need that. That seems expensive. It seems like we're doing a good enough job identifying who in the African American population is really on the spectrum or needs special education. And I just want to say, I'm so sorry, Mrs. DeVos, but not on my watch, and certainly not on a bunch of disability rights groups, because they filed a lawsuit. And
it's accusing the U.S. Department of Education of skirting its obligation to investigate complaints of disability and race-based discrimination.
I just want to get a cheerleader costume on and go raw, sis, boom. Where do I sign my name to the petition that says I'm with you on this? And rattle her cage a little bit, because this is not right. And you know what? It affects all of us.
It does.
Absolutely affects all of us in so many ways, because when we got those CDC numbers earlier, about a month ago, and they said, well, we're getting closer to the point where we think that we have identified, the rate of people who are on the spectrum and who happen to be African American is getting closer to being that of Caucasian. So we think that we've got this. We think that we've got this under control. And you and I both know that they're not even close.
No.
They are not even close. And where do those kids go if they don't get the services that they need? What happens then? If you are a person who cares about money and your tax dollars, then care about it from that point of view.
Because you're going to be a burden on the system.
If you're a human being and you care about human beings, think about those moms and dads whose kids aren't getting services because nobody bothered to identify them. And think about if that were your kid. And if you care about anything else, where these kids become homeless, this is a pipeline to prison. What are they going to do? That affects all of us.
It does.
Don't let the Department of Education get away with that.
No.
And that's what I have to say about
that. Well, and very well said, I might add.
In any case.
So we have two great guests with us today.
Yes.
And are we starting with Howie?
Actually, Howie is our
Second
ice
guest?
cream at the end.
Okay.
He's here already, but we're going to
Okay.
make him wait a little bit longer because
Right.
our first interview is with Amy Schutbauer.
Right.
And hopefully she's on the same page with me educationally.
I think she
'Cause
probably
she's somebody
is.
who goes in and tries to help them make things
Yes.
better.
She's
I have
helping kids break the cycle of unemployment by getting them job ready.
I love it.
Yeah.
Love it, love it,
Okay.
love it.
So we're going to take a break and
Yeah.
be back with Amy?
Thank you. Stick
Okay.
with us.
Yeah.
Hi guys, welcome back to Smarty. Today I have a special guest with me. What the heck? She's missing.
Here I am!
And what's your name?
Mackenzie,
And what are we doing today?
making sidewalk paint.
And how do we do that?
I have no idea.
So, the materials we'll be needing
Are 2 cups of cornstarch, 1 cup of cold water, 4.5 cups of boiling water. Be careful. A mixing bowl, a spoon, sparkle, and food
So, the first step we're gonna do is we're gonna take our 2 cups of cornstarch and put it in the big bowl.
Yes.
Can you do that for me?
Yes.
Thank you.
Sorry.
It's alright, I'll help you. Step 2, you're gonna put the cold water into the bowl.
Cold water to the bowl.
Good job. Step 3, we're gonna stir it with a big spoon. Good job. You're gonna keep stirring it until it's all the way mixed together. So the next step is adding the boiling water. That's a little dangerous for her, so I'll be doing it myself, 1 cup at a time, stirring it together. You gonna keep an eye on me?
Yes.
So once we're done stirring the cornstarch water, we're gonna start making our dyed paint. So
Yeah.
what are we gonna do?
We're gonna put in the dye,
Okay.
and we're gonna put in the sparkles.
All right, let's do it. Move this out of the way. All right. It's all you, Mackenzie. So the more food coloring you use, the brighter it's gonna be.
Ooh.
So let's put the sparkles in.
Now we're gonna put the cornstarch in the jar.
All right, do you wanna stir that up?
It looks pretty. We're gonna make a few more colors, and we're gonna go paint on the side.
See all the colors in the sky tonight.
Are you excited?
Yeah.
All right, let's do it.
Love is the truest state of mind. Now can you see me? Can you see me? Can you see me flying by your side?
Just go like this. Can you see me? Puedes mirarme aquí? Okay. Hi, I'm Rebecca Ishida. Say hi, Ethan.
Hi.
My son was diagnosed with autism in November 2004. With Ethan, almost immediately, we noticed things that were troublesome, that he just didn't sleep. He would vomit in the crib. There were a lot of sensory issues.
Then he'd have like 20 of the trains lined up, and if you came in and took one train out, just meltdown completely.
Guttural instinct is to think that there's nothing wrong. Who wants to look at their child and go, there's something wrong with that child? You don't. You always want to see the best in your child.
Will my kid be able to go to school? Will he interact with his peers? Will he be able to have a healthy relationship? Will he get married? I really thought that autism was like a death sentence. A lot of hope was given to me through CARD. This was my 3rd agency and the best agency we had. And there was no way in the world I was going to give up CARD because of the gains I saw Ethan was having. And I remember when Doreen saw us for the evaluation, she says, but by the time he's 6, he will be recovered. And that's exactly what happened.
I'll fix that.
And we are back, and we have as our guest joining us via Skype, Amy Skideborough, a school improvement specialist at Salem High School in Virginia Beach, Virginia. And she's been working with students with disabilities for more than 25 years. And students with special needs at Salem High School receive hands-on instruction to gain critical work and life skills that help them to become gainfully employed and live independently after graduation. Welcome to the show, Amy.
Thank you so much.
We're thrilled to have you here. This is a really exciting idea that you guys have. How are you guys breaking the cycle of unemployment?
Well, you know, the national longitudinal study showed us that our students were leaving us and going home and basically sitting on the couch.
Mm-hmm.
And so we work very hard to put in place a program where we're teaching students life skills and job skills. We're fortunate in our division to have resources that allow us to actually take the children then out into the community and give them hands-on experience in the community, working in businesses within their own neighborhood due to transportation issues. You know, we found that the kids might be able to get a job, but then weren't able to keep the job because they couldn't get there. So we took all of those things into consideration, built some relationships, and we're just making it happen.
And so you're taking them out to areas in their neighborhoods to learn skills? Yes. Okay.
Yes, so we're teaching the skills in the classroom. Once the children get comfortable and are a little bit older, we don't take freshmen out typically, we wait till they're sophomores or juniors, place them into businesses within their own community and put them to work. Non-paid employment situations though, because it's a classroom that's just been moved into the community.
Okay.
And then you've seen tremendous results from this, right? This isn't just a concept. You have real data to show that it's working.
We do. Our students are then offered employment a lot of times. We actually have one student right now who's up for an award at the hotel where he works at, where it could be a national recognition.
How exciting.
Yes. And he's enjoyed it so much. He applies part of those skills here in school through our coffee shop that we have on site. He's working with a catering class, and then in the community. And he's going to leave us this year 4, instead of staying with us for an extended period of time because he's got a job.
Right.
Amazing.
That's the point.
I want to know, yes. Amy, you know, it seems like there's several different groups here that this impacts, right? So first I'd like to know, what difference do you see in the students? Then I want to talk about what are you hearing from the parents? And then what are you hearing from the community?
Okay. So, you know, as we all know, our students with cognitive disabilities struggle in school. And, you know, with us putting reading, writing, and math and those sorts of content things in front of them, they're always going to struggle with it. So the most exciting thing is to see these students interacting with the larger population at school, because we're getting them out of their traditional classroom, and having them experience success for sometimes the first time in their educational career. So it's super, super exciting to see them be able to do that. And then from a parent perspective, you know, sometimes it's discouraging as a parent of a student who struggles to know what they're going to do later on. And am I, as the parent, going to be responsible, more responsible for this child than I would one of my other children? And so again, to see that success and to feel that success and to know that their student is going to be making their own money, maybe not enough to live on their own, but to contribute to the household, is again just really exciting and rewarding for all of us involved. From the community perspective, we have businesses that come to us and explain that some of our students are the best workers they have. They show up every day, they'll do whatever's asked, they're dressed the way they need to be dressed without question. You know, they're not questioning dress code or what the business requires that way. And they're some of the most loyal employees that these businesses have seen. The other advantage with us teaching what we do at school is that the businesses require less time and resources in training these students So again, it's a win-win for everybody.
Now, are you working with all levels of ASD, or is this just higher functioning kids?
No, not just higher functioning students. We're working with all levels, and granted, where they're placed in the community may differ, based on their abilities. But we're not discounting any student based on the difficulties they have. We're looking at their strengths and on strengths.
Okay, we're having a little bit of an issue
Yeah.
with Skype, but I think we got the main thing there. Amy, I'm wondering, for people who are watching this and they're not in the Virginia Beach area and they're going, why doesn't my child's school have this? Are you looking at creating a roadmap for other schools to follow in your footsteps?
I suppose we could.
Well, Amy, I think you should.
I don't mind setting an example, certainly, and being whatever kind of resource we can. We've spent a lot of years tweaking this program and making sure that we're doing what's right by our kids. I think we do a good job, and our results show that. So in education, it's always borrow from others, right?
Right. Well, I think you need to put together a workbook. But
Yeah.
but in the meantime, if there's a school or somebody who's watching this and says we'd like to do this, would you be willing to mentor somebody through their first year of this?
I'm always willing to work with others and to help out. It's the right thing to do.
Okay.
I love that.
So you're at
To do what's
Salem,
right by kids.
and once again, you're at Salem High School in Virginia Beach, Virginia.
That's correct.
And so if somebody wants to get in touch with you, that's where they should get in touch with you.
That works.
I
Okay.
just want to thank you. It's people like you who make a difference in our kids' lives. I had to write a letter. I'm going to get emotional, but I had to write a letter for end of school year to one of my son's teachers. And I said, we can all look back and see one teacher that really made a difference, that changed our lives. And I said, I know for a fact that this teacher will have been that teacher
Really?
for my son. And I think that you probably are that person for so many people at your school.
Thank you. That means a lot.
It does. It means a lot because you're changing those lives. So thank you for doing the work that you're doing. I hope a flood of people call and write you and say you better write a book.
Okay.
And will you come back when you have the book together, Amy?
Sure.
Okay, great.
And you had plans for this summer, and now I just put that on you. But I want to know all about it when it happens. I think it's a really good thing.
Well, good luck with the program and continue the good work.
Thank you so much.
Okay,
All right,
thanks for
take care,
joining
Amy.
us.
Bye-bye.
Yeah, bye-bye.
Okay,
Amazing program.
Yeah, really good. These programs should be in all our high schools.
It's a big fat duh,
Right.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
Right? But people need the roadmap.
Yeah.
And she's got it figured out.
Right.
So share, Amy, share. Right. No pressure, but share, Amy, share. I
Okay,
think
so
she
now
will.
we're going to take a brief break.
Yes, and then we get to bring Howie
Hoffman from
in
Exceptional
here.
Minds. We'll have
He's-
some fun.
I said earlier, he's the ice cream at the end of our
Okay,
show.
here he comes.
So here he comes. Stick with us.
Nobody ever asks a kid with autism, what is it you'd really like to do? At this school, we ask the kids, what is your goal? What is your dream? Exceptional Minds is a vocational training program for young adults on the autism spectrum who want to have careers in computer animation and visual effects. I think young people with autism are totally underestimated.
When you've met one person with autism, you've met one person with autism. They all have different talents, different skills, and what surprised me is that there really are no limits, that if these guys believe that they can do something, they really can.
It's estimated that 90 to 95% of young adults with autism are unemployed or underemployed.
A lot of young adults still live at home. A lot of them suffer from depression and are very isolated from the rest of the world, and the opportunities for them are very limited.
We want to develop careers for our young adults. Our full-time program runs 3 years, at the end of which we have job placement and job coaching. We have a work readiness program. We also have our own in-house studio so that when our students graduate, they can do on-the-job training and work on real projects.
We outsourced
about 30, 40 shots to the team here. They did fantastic work that we can put into a movie and be proud of it. It's great. I mean, we want to do it again.
The studio is their first step into the professional world, the first step in their new careers as digital artists.
The whole purpose is to get the students out into the real world.
We all have the same dreams. We want significance, dignity, and purpose with our lives. We have an opportunity to give those 3 words to every single student at this school who will actually be able to go out and participate in the dream.
This is my first full-time, full-paying job. I primarily work in After Effects. I learned After Effects at Exceptional Minds. It seemed like a good place for me to fit in because I was interested in animation.
Right from the first day that Nicky set foot in our company, he was producing work for us. We saw what level of professionalism is being instilled in them from the very beginning.
This was the first opportunity where Nicky could combine something he loved to do with something he was really, really good at that could eventually lead to employment.
When we first met Kevin, he was working at a supermarket bagging groceries, and they said he would never amount to anything else.
I work at Stargate Studios, and I'm a junior compositor. I mainly do like rotoscoping right now, and I'm still learning.
I think that you find great talent in the most amazing places. The students at Exceptional Minds have had a fair amount of training to get them ready for the visual effects environment.
If it wasn't for Exceptional Minds, I might still be at the supermarket, and I might be living at my parents' house.
Everything's changed. Nicky has purpose.
It feels like I'm a member of society now.
He's capable of making it on his own.
Once you get inside and you see what's really happening there, you immediately want to be a part of it.
It's the dream factory, you know, the movie business. And if you can connect people with their dreams, then the magic happens.
At Exceptional Minds, we like to say that we are changing lives one frame at a time.
Thank you.
Welcome back. What you just saw was the animation reel for the animation studio at Exceptional Minds. We're here with Howie Hoffman from Exceptional Minds. He's the brilliant genius that helps to make all that possible. So Howie, welcome. This is your first time on the show, which is
first time on the show.
That's ridiculous.
I know.
What were we thinking?
We've been talking about it for years.
I went to high school with Nancy.
Yes,
or a
in
little bit
Richmond,
before,
Virginia.
A little bit
Yeah.
before.
Which is crazy.
And when I first met, Ed Osner was our first spokesperson at Exceptional Minds. And Matt came with him. Matt, obviously,
His
an
son.
autism
Yeah.
leader in the LA community. And so I went up to Matt and I said, you know, my dad was a celebrity too. And he said, who? And I said, well, Dr. Bobby, the pediatrician in Richmond, Virginia.
Because he
And he got it. And he
in
got
Richmond,
it.
he was a very
in a
well-known
small town,
figure.
a good, right, exactly.
Right.
So
tell us a little bit about your background in art and animation and how you came to this role.
My background was, and there was a little bit of a contingent in animation in Richmond, Virginia, and I had dropped out of medical school after 4 days. And that's
One
true
for
story.
you, huh?
And I want to get to Exceptional Minds, but what happened with me quickly was I was lucky enough to be at a school, Medical College, Virginia, where the graduate school is known for its medical college, and the undergraduate VCU is known for its art school and its theater school, as you probably have heard of it from the theater aspect. And so I went immediately, long story short, I went immediately into art school and did an animated film that got a lot of notice and whatnot. And I moved to New York. There was a gentleman from Richmond, Jim Jenkins, who 10 years later created the show Doug, but at that time was one of the first 3 or 4 people at Nickelodeon, and he hired me to come to New York for the birth of Nickelodeon and then later the launch of MTV. I was introduced to him by a girlfriend at the time in Richmond who became half the model for Patty Mayonnaise on Doug, and I got the chance to design for Doug. So I came out to LA after 20 years in New York to work for Warner Brothers Animation and for their commercial division, classic commercials. In the meantime, I had created Trix commercials. I'd done a lot of I guess I got known as an idea guy. I'm not the creative genius behind that reel, though. It's the guys. It's these people on the spectrum. People ask me who I work with, and I say, oh, talented and gifted, because that's pretty much it.
Love that.
And we'll get to that, but I will say this while I'm thinking of it. If there's ever a time where I start to question somebody's diagnosis or prognosis and think, is that person on the spectrum? I'll usually look at them and look at their work and go, you know, they're that talented. They have to be.
What a great way of looking at it.
It's true though. It's so true. It's so purely true. So I came out here and as a result of an inner ear injury, I was sort of out of the loop that I had been in, the so-called big time, although I consider now to be the big time, what I do now. And so on my way back up, I met a gentleman who was starting an after-school program for kids on the spectrum for movie making and including animation. And it was interesting because there were a lot of special needs kids there, but as soon as we started animation, the whole clientele became one with autism. So there's a real connection that I'd like to discuss between autism and animation. But that's basically my background. I got to be known somehow as an idea guy, and I went with it in New York and I went with it in LA, and I do like structuring creative thought, and like all of us, like you said in the earlier part of the show, the apple, like about parents,
yes.
you know, having
Puppies
some
don't have
qualities
things.
of the spectrum. All artists are obsessive and probably have attention deficit, and I'm likely no exception. And people tell me how creative I am, but it's really, I obsess on it. I don't let an idea go until I work it out, until I solve it. And that's what makes these guys great.
But I was going to say that's what
do
makes
too.
you an incredible teacher and leader for these individuals, because you understand that process, you understand some of the difficulties, and I think you're incredibly modest because your earlier life has helped you to pave roads for your students, that you have all these connections that some of the people that are in places now at studios are people who you helped to bring up.
There's some people that I don't know if I helped, but I encouraged at the very least, and who have come around to help us, and and we're really grateful for that. I'm always attracted to talent, and that's why I'm inspired by this group of students and this group of our studio artists that I work with. And it's no less than inspiring. So I've always been attracted to talent, and I've always sought it out, and I've always taught as an avocation. I went back to visit my summer camp in Maine on a vacation from Saatchi & Saatchi in 1985, or the agency that became Saatchi & Saatchi. And at this sports camp, Camp Androscoggin in Wayne, Maine, I made animated shorts with the jocks for about 2 weeks. And I marched back. Went back to Nickelodeon, and I went with Fred Seibert, and we marched into Nickelodeon and said, "Your network is 4 years old. You know me. You're a kids network. Why aren't your station IDs made by kids?" And they said, "How the heck do we do that?" And that's a great idea. How do we do that? And I said, "Hire me." So for the next 18 summers, at the expense of my career and the envy of every major executive, I went back and we made animated shorts for Disney Channel, for PBS, a show called Zoom. We made Nickelodeon, of course, and Kids WB, Warner Brothers Animation. When I moved out here, I left there to go back this summer. So I used to have people like Rob Sorcher, who heads up Cartoon Network Creative now. He's head of the network, basically, and he has helped with money and with an upcoming project. He has really helped Exceptional Minds Studio. He helped launch it with an initial funding, and he used to say to me, "How do you get to go to camp every summer?" and I'd say, "Well, Rob, I'm not head of AMC like you are."
Right.
And so that became, so teaching was an avocation. I started in Williamsburg, Virginia, near where Amy is, and I started with a government grant under the Jimmy Carter administration, later removed, but we won't go there, to teach animation in the public school system of Williamsburg, Virginia, for 5 months, and that was great. And my star kid, I later met up with in New York. He walked into a studio, and I said, "You look familiar." He said, "It's me, Nash Dunnigan." And Nash Dunnigan became the art director of the Peanuts movie that came out a couple of years ago. So he came to Exceptional Minds.
You've had a lot of illustrious students.
So yeah, so my line is I know everybody, and some of them like me. And,
I love that.
In Hollywood, out here in LA, I think it's pretty good.
And that translates to the studio. Talk to us a little bit about the studio and what happens there.
Exceptional Minds is a 3-year vocational school, and now in essence a 4th year, because we have an apprenticeship program in both of our visual effects studio and our animation studio. So the visual effects studio is 5 years old, about 5 years old, and it's they do visual effects and end credits for movies like recently Star Wars, Black Panther, the new Avengers, and it's amazing. They get work. The model is they get a lot of work that would normally go to India. So Marvel or Disney, they do get good PR out of it. It's win-win for everybody. And our guys get to work on franchises they grew up with and they idolize, and they get to see at least Exceptional Minds' name, but often their names in the credits, besides the fact that they're putting those credits together often. So we do marker removal, and they do stuff with green screen.
It's amazing. It's a tradition now in our family. We go to see a movie, especially if it's a Marvel movie, and we sit. We always wait for the credits anyway, right?
That's so
Because
nice.
that's an LA thing to do. But we wait, and when we see Exceptional Minds, we applaud. And we're like, there it is!
That's great.
Yay. So we love that. But anyway, I interrupted you.
No. We love that, and I think that's one of the greatest things about it. So visual effects it's hard work, and besides the connection to animation and those cartoon souls like me that are students, there are those that are really meant for visual effects and not. So that's about 5 years old. The animation studio, the reel which you just saw, that is just coming up on 2 years. And the executive producer of the visual effects studio, Susie Zwerman, is also executive producer and head of the animation studio as well. I am the creative director, and I direct a lot of what we bring in. and part of my job is to bring stuff in from these friends, the few that like me, I hope. And we have John, our producer, and Scott, another director. And then right now we have 4 to 6 graduates that are in the studios. And then this year, with our graduating class, we have 4 going into visual effects and 6 coming into the animation studio. And
you've had some pretty big projects.
Yeah, we've had some great projects, Nancy. We have projects that are commercial, literally, like for a Rube Goldberg toy for Spin Master ad agency. We had my brainstorming partner for many years was Virginia Beach's B.J. Liederman, NPR composer. So we did a music video, which you saw a little bit of there for B.J. And then we've gotten to do stuff with the community, which is really, and I think the graduates like working, the studio artists like working on that, as close to home as it is. But we did a big project for Special Olympics, and not on this reel because I can't show you yet, is the animated sequence we just did for Atypical, for the network show Atypical.
Love it.
So in liking talent, I went to the screening, I met Rabia, I met Michelle Dean, and
they're fabulous.
Yeah, they are. Even though she's a Channel Islands professor in special ed, she's like you are in the sense that she has a background in casting and the way you have a theater and whatnot. So so we have gotten to do both projects that are more commercial oriented and for the studio, and we have a ways to go, but not very far for these guys. The object is this, we're all about. I just said yesterday to somebody, we're putting the EM in employment. That's the goal. That's why I get paid the big bucks for silly lines like that.
I love it.
And so our goal is, in essence, our goal is to get to have a life for these guys. And in order to have a life, you have to have a livelihood.
Have a job.
So whether you're going to go to, we have internships at Cartoon Network, we have internships, annual internship at Nickelodeon, Warner Brothers, we have job placed at Cartoon Network, and in visual effects we have people working at Stargate, at Barnstorm, at Marvel and Disney. And then for me, there are a lot of people that are meant for our studio. And I want our studio, our animation studio, to be as big or as great, at least, as fun, as nurturing, or even more nurturing than any other studio. And so that's the goal. And we've had a good start for 2 years. And as I think you've seen on the reel.
I've got a question for you, though, about stress. That the movie industry can be a pretty stressful place, and there are deadlines, and there are things, and it's very demanding. How do you help the students to mitigate that?
They get used to the stress. It's a great question. We have a really good job readiness program. They spend 1 day a week pretty much focusing on just that. So they get practice with interviews, they get practice with all that. For some, it's stressful for anybody. For all of us, it's stressful. The deadline pressure, the social part, and that's why I want the option, a viable option of a studio that's nurturing and that's. But it's interesting. There's so many good, as far as animation world goes. There's so many gentle spirits in animation, and as you know, in the entertainment industry, from having Garth here yesterday, that. A lot of these studios, like Cartoon Network, are very nurturing. And Nickelodeon has a relationship with Burbank High School, besides us, where they have Carson Smith there, has a whole community outreach program at Nickelodeon. And they went to pitch to Burbank High School a few years ago, and this one person who never said anything got up to pitch his show, and blew everybody away, and he was on the spectrum, of course.
Right.
So they took him as an intern, and now they've taken him, as a job. And when they reminded when they reminded the head of Nickelodeon at the time that he had autism, the head of Nickelodeon said 75% of people that work here are likely on the spectrum.
Right.
So I think it's a good field for that, for support for the stress. But again, that's why we have the option of a studio there. And I would hope that some that are able to handle the stress and go out to other studios will even come back and lead in our studios. And so we have, to me, it's what the kid wants. And it's all about what the kid wants. They may think they want to be somewhere else and then decide they want to be with us, and vice versa.
Now, before they come into Exceptional Minds, do they have to have an aptitude for animation and have proven and worked in that field, or do you sort of introduce some of these kids?
In terms of the program, because employment's the mission and the goal, in some ways we've gotten more and more high functioning, but we have accommodations. We have an extensions program, and we so yeah, they do have to have. Some of them are coming from other colleges already, from other colleges. Because they need more training and more time. I mean, you know, I didn't move to Nickelodeon. I was waiting tables at Tobacco Company restaurant, you know, in Richmond. I didn't move to Nickelodeon until almost 30. So I guess it took me a while as well. So that's a great question as well. We have an extensions program. So if you're over 18 and you have and you're not really, either you want to get prepared for the full-time program, or you don't want to be in the full-time program, but you just want to make content, or they're free during the day. So we now allow for those, if they're more impacted perhaps, or maybe they're just different kind of goal.
Right.
You know, I have a student from Huntington Beach who's come a day a week for 5 years now. And he's a savant. He's maybe the best animator I've ever directed. So we have extension programs for those that aren't in the full-time program or want to be. But yes, the aptitude needs to be there. I always used to think, before we became a vocational school, when I was working with the younger, it was more about, do you want to be there? And that's a big thing here. And I would say, do you like art and do you like computers? Because if you like that and you're, I'd like to address with that question, it's uncanny, but there is a connection between autism and animation. And everybody knows, and you're familiar with this too as Reed's mom, I'm sure, that there is an aptitude for art and for creative and writing stories and all that. But it's just coming in with Exceptional Minds, I think. We're bringing the attention to, there is a real connection between these two art forms. And I've been wondering why, and discovering in really wonderful ways why. So one of it is they seem to love cartoons. Everybody does as kids, I imagine. I did, but not any more than most kids. I was into commercials, which is why I later went into that. But they seem to love cartoons. Some that continue to have a very young sensibility, and they will like Thomas the Tank, and they will love Sesame Street, although everybody does. And the others will, allow me to be hip by teaching me about certain game things or certain shows. But there seems to be a genuine love of cartoons. Our producer, John Clark, says that's why he's there, because he absolutely loves cartoons. So I consider them cartoon souls like me. And the other thing is, many of them have a great visual memory. Just like Spectrum Lab works with a lot of people that have a great audio memory. They have a great visual memory. And it's almost photographic in a lot of cases. I was working with a student, teaching him to animate on digital, on Animate, which used to be called Flash. And he was doing stick figure of a guy running without a guy that I would normally use. And he would look up into his head, and not only was he recalling somebody running, but he was breaking it up into frame by frame. Wow. I mean, it's uncanny. And, they're not all savants, but they all have a tendency towards sequence. Some of them are good editors, and those that can't draw, some of them are good photographers or good art directors, but or good storytellers. And so there's also a perseverance, their attention to detail.
Yeah.
And if they're into it, and this is what helps the visual effects guys, but they will just continue to work on it until they get it right. And visual effects is a little bit more perfection oriented. What I like about the animation studio, the cartoon studio, and doing cartoons is it's a way to celebrate the imperfection of this population. And there's charm and there's money in that too. So I asked why, I don't know your experience, but they say that a lot of people on the spectrum have trouble reading people's expressions, whether you're mad at them or sad or whatever, and yet they are great when it comes to animating them.
Huh? Interesting.
So I finally just asked Michael Yoakum in our studio why. Why is that so? He said, Howie, in animation, the expressions are exaggerated. They're easy to read.
I've often heard that the reason that a lot of our kids like Thomas the Tank Engine is because the faces are easy to read off the trains.
Wow, that's right. Atticus Baldwin, my friend, he loves it, and part of the reasons is his Uncle Alec narrated it for a while. But
Right.
I think you're right.
Yeah.
And it's colorful, and it's got.
And they're exaggerated and big, and they can really see the expressions.
That's right.
Yeah.
It's amazing. We're running out of time, and I want to talk just briefly about the fact that you mentioned that there is the vocational school and the studio, but you also do camps. Can we talk just a little bit about camps this summer?
We do camps. We do summer workshops, they call it. I call it camps, having been a camp person. Thank you for reminding me. I did want to talk about that. We have 4 2-week sessions. I brought the form, but not into the studio, of course. And they each last 2 weeks. And we have them in everything. We have Saturday programs now on Saturdays regularly for 12 years and older. And we have after-school programs for if you're in high school and you get out in the afternoon. We have one-on-one private lessons. So this is sort of an extension of that. You have cartoon time, which is beginning Flash, beginning Animate. And then they have a more advanced Animate. They have digital painting. They have Photoshop. They have beginning visual effects. And so a range of things. It's from 10 to 3, so you still have a little bit of the afternoon. And it's loose but wonderful. Every person that comes goes home with their own little movie of sorts. Sometimes we take those little movies. I used to do this and put it into one big film. And so I think I've been long-winded enough.
So how
it's all fascinating.
Yeah.
How can they contact you about any of the programs?
I didn't bring a graphic for this. I think I'll tell you what. I'll give everybody my email to start with.
Okay.
But you can contact me at Howie, Howie, at Exceptional Minds Studio. So that's EXCEPTIONAL, Minds, plural, MINDS, another S for studio, singular, .org.
Okay.
Or if you want to know about the summer program, you can contact Jill at exceptionalmindstudio.org. And you can contact Jill. She may have killed me for saying that, so you may be able to contact
Well, we've got the
only
website
her.
up on,
you do?
on the lower
was just
third,
up,
exceptionalmindstudio.org.
A good thing if you're interested in the summer is to go to the website. There's an intake form there. Fill that out, and then you can call Jill
There
at the
you go.
number listed. That's probably the best way to go.
Easiest because you'll be inundated with calls.
Yeah.
Amazing. So, and any age group for, I know you
12 and
mentioned
older for
12
the
and
summers.
older.
Okay.
Summers.
And 12 and older in general, in the sense that summer we have Saturday classes for 12.
Okay. And then the vocational program is 18 and over.
And the 18 and older is for the extensions program, right?
Okay.
If you want to prepare for the full time, or if you're not interested in the full time, you just want to make content, and or you want to market your content even, or even we work with content development as well. We pitch shows and things like that as well.
It's remarkable, really remarkable. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I hope I gave you enough time to ask questions.
Yes,
absolutely, absolutely.
Thank you.
We've only got like a minute left, so I'm going to ask if you don't mind staying there. I'm just going to tease what we're doing tomorrow.
Absolutely.
We sort of gave it away because we put out pictures yesterday. We did a little bit of pre-taping for tomorrow's show because tomorrow we're just talking about arts and autism. And so we have Connor Haney, who is with us tomorrow, and he is the writer-director of the musical Best Buddies, the hip-hop musical, with a very diverse cast.
Okay.
People of all abilities in his cast.
Great.
He's talking about that. It really is amazing. That's playing at the Hollywood Fringe Festival, opening on Sunday, which is a really great thing. We also have with us all of the folks from Camp Ed, the Ed Asner Family for Excellence, and so
Yeah, they're starting up this summer with a camp.
Yes, and
that
so
has autism movement therapy involved.
and so Joanne Laura, we videotaped with them yesterday. Joanne Laura was here. Garth Herberg from Spectrum Laboratories, and Matt Asner and Nava Paskowitz Asner were all here. We're going to show you that tomorrow. It really is an amazing camp and something that only a very few people are going to be able to partake of it this summer. But there are a couple of openings. People need to take advantage and hop onto it. It's really going to be a remarkable day tomorrow. Of course, I'm forgetting who else we have. Oh my gosh, we have Dancing Dan with us tomorrow.
Who's Dancing Dan?
Dancing Dan is for Ballet for All, making a documentary about Ballet for All. Oh my gosh, that will be so exciting. So I'm really thrilled about that. You know I love the arts, and marrying them with autism, it's the best thing ever, right? I think we can all agree on that.
Yeah.
Now I'm all verklempt.
Okay.
In any case, so that's tomorrow. Until then, give your kiddos a hug from me.
And give yourselves a hug from me. Bye-bye for now.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.